cost of ownership is the development of software solutions that make available an operating system, tools, and middleware that makes development, design, building, and operation of smart connected devices easier. It definitely takes a look at full and effective integration into a broader set of devices, and from the edge all the way back to the data center where the data is being sorted and filtered and so on. In the long term, as I mentioned earlier, total cost of ownership has an impact on quality, longevity solution, support costs, as well as operation issues, software updates, emerging standards, and supply chain. It's part of the solution that Wind River brings to market does address these things. Pete, would you like to make a couple of comments?
Sure. I think you see kind of an overview of the platform approach that we've taken here. As Rick alluded to before, you've got several layers of involvement here, from the silicon all the way up to software stacks, to the servers on the other end of the connectivity, for instance. Multiple layers included even in the topologies, where you have devices, gateways, servers, and then of course the cloud on the back end, or you know, who knows what kind of server architectures beyond, you know, the primary gateway there. What we've done is we've addressed several of the protocols that Christine mentioned before, that the protocols have been evolving and emerging to tie these systems together. We've had protocols emerge over time. We saw XML as an extensible model, for instance, where humans and computers can both utilize, you know, the markup itself and the readability itself. But it has a high overhead to it. So now we see emerging protocols. Some of those you see up there for remote access, OMADM, TRO69, the ability to communicate and reach into the device, and especially important for us is in a secure manner. The last thing that you want to have happen is for somebody to access your device that is going to take control over it, and you don't want them doing, you know, what they're going to do with it, as we've learned from a particular nuclear power plant in Iran, for instance, if you guys know about Stuxnet. So what we've done is we've addressed the stacks up and down and to a breadth of industries: healthcare, smart metering, transportation. I call them the 3 Ts, trains, trucks, and tractors, for instance. So we've gone horizontally across those industries, as well as vertically deep into the actual getting down with the silicon vendors, working with them for different types of wireless connectivity, and securing also your IP inside of the device. So that's important.
Thank you. So since this is a panel and you all have questions, I've got a couple of questions just to get us started with, and then the gentleman there in the blue jacket at the back, I'm going to start with your audience question first. So Barry, since you come from the wired ecosystem where Cisco touches almost all of the layers of machine-to-machine connectivity, what would you say is the most influential driving factor for machine-to-machine growth?
Well, it's an interesting question. Thank you for that. I think I have to break it into 2 parts. You know, I know it's a single factor, but to me, you have to differentiate machine to machine in the business and the business context from business to consumer. So, you know, the driving factor in business to business really hasn't changed. It's safety, you know, cost reduction, and incremental sales, right? So, can they increase the top line? Can they improve the bottom line? Can they improve operations or safety? For business consumer, it's really more about innovation and how you can create value through that innovation. I have a personal story on that. We had to buy a new refrigerator last summer, and my wife was looking at a stainless steel refrigerator, and we're new grandparents, and the challenge there in being new grandparents is, you know, you have to put new pictures up on your refrigerator, but everybody buys a stainless steel refrigerator today. So what is that? Where's the problem in that? Well, you want to brag, right? So now Samsung has a refrigerator that has you know, a touch screen on it, and on that touch screen you can display pictures. So how do they solve the problem? They got $500 more out of me for the refrigerator,
Wow.
because now I was able to put pictures on there of my grandchildren, right? That had nothing to do with a return on investment. That's a completely emotional response, but that was their value proposition, and you know what? It worked, right? So we use it for pictures of our grandchildren and Pandora channels for them to listen to Sesame Street. Right? That's the business value associated with that.
Rick, would you like to add to what Barry has said here?
Sure. I mean, I think when you talk about, influential driving factors on this market actually growing, I mean, you can pick anybody's numbers you want, and we all sort of glommed on to Ericsson's number of 50 billion connected devices by 2020, and everybody uses that one. But I think that, if the industry, there's a lot of pent-up demand. I think we can all get creative about how we would use connected devices and data extraction and data management and big data and analytics and business intelligence. But I think there's a huge gap as technologists where we get excited about what we can do and what we're building, and we're forgetting that we've got to connect this chain of capability to a user who's going to put that into a business problem and solve it, or a user problem and solve it. And these are complex solutions. These are complex ingredients. They're complex elements. And I think as a market, as an industry, we need to start communicating how people build these solutions, how they implement these solutions, and what that derived value is when they implement them. So we're trying to actually go at this maybe a little bit differently. As a technology company, our natural thing would be to start with ingredient value and build our way into why somebody should buy it and what it's going to deliver for them. Instead, we're trying to turn that upside down and start talking about what is the business problem at the end point, at the point where somebody spends money, and to the point that Barry just made, and whether that's trying to become more productive and efficient or more profitable, or whether they're trying to drive new revenue, and there's consumer productivity and efficiency along with how I save money as a consumer or how I save money as a company, whatever the case may be. We really got to start addressing that business value first, and then making the technology meet that need. And when we can connect those two things, I think this thing will really explode. And I think that's what we're trying to figure out right now in terms of technology implementation through the framework that was described by Christine earlier.
John, can you add any perspective you'd like to add on to this question?
Both Rick and Barry have already touched on one of the most important things, which is the value of the information itself. And what are you going to do with that information once you got it? If there's not a sink for the information, if there's not somebody who really wants it, it's great to telemeter everything on the planet and have it, but if you don't have a business value, if there's not some perceived value, whether it's your business or your personal life or whatever it is, it's not going to happen. So that, to me, I got to agree with those guys. It's an incredibly important part of influencing the growth of M2M. The other challenge is that just because I want to do all this stuff, if I can't settle on standardized ways to do it, to communicate to these devices, to communicate from these devices, if I have a proprietary method for doing everything and it's all different, then it gets very hard to somehow aggregate this information together. If the languages that these devices speak, a sensor from Barry's company speaks X and a sensor from Peter's company speaks Y, well, how do I synchronize that back together again? So it's important that we we make sure that we try and stay focused on standardized methods, which are already existing. We've already, we've gone tremendous distance coming up with standardized approach to cellular communication, standardized approach to computer communications, Ethernet, wireless Ethernet, and then working on the higher level communications layers. Do we do things in XML? Do we do things in specific languages? How do we encapsulate that information so that me, you, any of us can actually understand what that means? And so I think we have a way to go still before we really can start to see this massive growth occur. Notwithstanding regulatory challenges and personal, political kinds of challenges, but the technology challenges are still very significant.
Pete?
I think I'd sum my factor up in one word, and that would be efficiency. You know, if you look at the olden days of trying to figure out a challenge that you could solve with an M2M type of architecture, you'd end up hiring up a whole bunch of engineers and try to figure out how to build it from the ground up. And those days are gone. You have a lot of out-of-the-box solutions, and especially as John mentioned, you have very rapidly increasing standardization that's specializing in industries that addresses all of the different factors: safety, performance, reliability, cost efficiency, et cetera, for those industries. So now you can pretty much, you know, build up out of Legos instead of reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
Excellent.
But what's really important about that, and you know, both gentlemen are spot on. You know, I've just come back from Ireland where I was meeting with a manufacturing company, and they've got all the latest and greatest stuff in their factory, but none of it works together, right? So I mean, they've got the state of the art, but it's not enough just to have protocols or to use standard protocols to be OSGI compliant, or to have a good XML structure, or to have a good HTML5 programming discipline. Still, companies are trying to find, the term I hear again and again is stickiness, right? What's my stickiness?